Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another week of social distancing learning using our video conferencing tool, GoToMeeting. Um, what can I say? I'm very, very excited because we are starting something tonight, something that I've been wanting to learn myself for many, many years, and um, I've never got around to it. I bought many books on this sefer, and I never really had the chance to sit down, study it, research it, learn it. And we concluded prior to Shavuot this series of Perkei Avot, and I wanted to stay on the theme of Musar, ethics, life lessons, so on and so forth. That line of thought. And I said, you know what, a better opportunity we have to sit down and study the book of Mishle. And I was a little bit hesitant, I have to admit. In fact, a member of the synagogue called me today at around 12:30, 1 o'clock, to inform me of a mazel tov from his family. And he said, "Nu, is there going to be a class today?" And I was just debating in my mind whether or not to just initiate and start the book of Mishle, and or just pick something else. A lot of other things were on my mind, but I said, you know what? Maybe there's a reason. I saw some life signs in the past few days where I felt maybe this is the right opportunity to begin this journey of studying this book. And I don't know how long this is going to last. It's a long sefer of 31 chapters, but if you don't start, you can never finish. And therefore, tonight hopefully is the beginning of what eventually we'll get to as the end. Tonight's shiur is sponsored by Michael and Orna Saruya in memory of their late son Yosef Chaim ben Menachem Zichron Libracha, who is the Nahala today. And the words of Torah that we say in this opening perek of such a very, very special sefer, one of the more holy books that we have on earth, should be Leilui Nishmato, should bring his neshama higher and higher in Gan Eden, so that he should stand next to the Kisei HaKavod Be'ezrat Hashem through the holy Amen. Words that we're going to say tonight. Amen. What can I say? You know, when you're appointed king, when you're 12 years old, there's probably a lot on your mind. Nowadays, if you're given the title of prime minister in your 40s, such as I believe that we have in our country, many are quick to say, well, he's not ready, or he's too young, or he doesn't have the experience, and he's not able to lead a country, or he's not able to make the quick decisions when need to be done. And certain times, certain things require the experience, the older age, the maturity. This is not a knock on our prime minister, but it's in comparison to what Shlomo HaMelech had to deal with at the age of 12. At the age of 12, he was anointed the successor to his great father, the great Melech Israel, David HaMelech, who passed away at the age of 70. And his son Shlomo takes over. And young as he was, there was only one thing that really mattered to Shlomo HaMelech, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu appeared to Shlomo HaMelech in a prophetic dream. And he asked Shlomo HaMelech, Shlomo, I want to grant you one thing. What would you choose if I was to grant you this one thing? You know, as kids, or some even as adults, we always tease our friends, and we say, if a genie came out of a bottle, if you had one wish, and it could be granted, any wish you want, what would you choose? Many people choose long life. Many people choose wealth. Many people choose health. There's a massive list of things that everyone would have or would choose. One thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu or anyone can grant you. But Shlomo HaMelech, young, knew the predicament that he was. His half-brother, Adoniah, already made claim to the throne, and he aspired to the throne. He wanted to seize the throne and the monarchy. And Bnei Israel at the time were not truly spared and protected from their enemies. These enemies often invaded the land, even during the time of David HaMelech, as great as a warrior David HaMelech was. So Shlomo HaMelech taking over was no guarantee, especially at a 12-year-old. Imagine if you were a member of Bnei Israel and you just received a newspaper on your front porch that morning. 12-year-old now runs the nation. What would your reaction be? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to him in a dream. Shlomo HaMelech is very worried. He's anxious. He's not sure what's going to be, and he's saying, what do you want? I'll give it to you. And Shlomo HaMelech chooses, based on the Pesukim brought down in Sefer Melachim, Perek Gimel, he chooses what's most important to him. He wanted the ability to judge Hashem's people according to his Torah. So he ignored all the other needs that a king would normally desire in place for wisdom. That is what he asked for, Chokhmah. And God's answer is well known. He said that because Shlomo HaMelech requested wisdom instead of longevity, instead of riches, or the life of his enemies, HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised him all of it. He promised him long life, he promised him riches, and he promised him the ability to overthrow the enemies and be able to conquer those people that attacked Bnei Israel. Now Shlomo HaMelech woke up from this dream, and he realized this was not an ordinary one. He wasn't even sure if it was real. Is this actually happening to him? But the dream was indeed prophetic. And the Chachamim explain that Shlomo HaMelech was able to tell that the promise of the dream was fulfilled because the Midrash writes he was able to understand the braying of the donkeys and the chirping of the birds. You hear the birds now, springtime outside, you're having a nice cup of coffee in your backyard, enjoying the sunshine, and you hear the birds chirping. Oh, what a wonderful sound. Those birds, they're chirping for a reason. They're calling other birds. They're looking for a mate. There's so much going on in the world of nature. Shlomo HaMelech understood why the donkeys are braying, why the dogs are barking, and why the birds are chirping. And he realized that the promise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu was being fulfilled. Immediately after this, Shlomo HaMelech returns to Yerushalayim, Ir David, the capital of Israel, and he expresses his gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by bringing many, many offerings and making a great feast, a great Mishle. Chachamim learned from this celebration, that we should make our own Mishle, our own Simcha, our own Seudah, whenever we complete a significant portion of the Torah. This is where the minhag comes from. That's why you have some people, they make a Siyum Masechet. When they finish a Masechet Torah, something significant, they make a party, they make a Seudah, they want to celebrate it. It comes from this, because Shlomo HaMelech, after acquiring all this knowledge from God, he felt he needed to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Elazar in the Midrash explains that as a result of this acquisition of intellect that he received, Shlomo HaMelech immediately composed 3 sefarim that became part of our holy Tanakh. These 3 sefarim are Mishle, Proverbs, the one that we're going to be studying, Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs that we Sephardim recite every Friday night, and Kohelet. Kohelet is similar to Proverbs, also ways of thinking of life. There is a machloket about this. There's the opinion of Rabbi Yonatan. Rabbi Yonatan offers a similar opinion, but not the same. He says when Shlomo HaMelech was young in his prime intellect, that's when he composed Shir HaShirim, the passionate allegory of the love between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Bnei Israel, to which Rabbi Akiva famously said in the Gemara, all the songs in the Torah are considered kadosh, are considered holy. But Shir HaShirim is considered Kodesh Kodashim. That's the holy of holies, Shir HaShirim. It's the highest level of scripture that we have outside of the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. When Shlomo Melech was older, he wrote the book of Mishle to convey his wisdom to all the world, because when you're older, you have more wisdom. When you're 12 years old, you have wisdom, but not so much. So at later on in his life, he was able to teach the teachings of Mishle. And then when he was advanced in his years, when he realizes that really this world is not much going on and the real world is coming up, that's when he wrote Kohelet, his famous line of Hevel Havalim HaKol Havel, where he promotes the idea that this world is nonsense. It's a waste. Really, what's coming and what's true is in the next world. And at that time, he was given the name Kohelet, one of Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech had many names: Yedidia, Shlomo. One of them was Kohelet, the book that he wrote later in his life, coming from the word kahal. Kahal means a congregation, or to congregate. Rashi explains that this was a reference to his wisdom, because he was able to congregate within himself everything that he needed to know. He had total mastery. He had total mastery of all knowledge, of everything. Some Chachamim explain that the reason why he was called Kohelet was not because he congregated the knowledge within himself, but because he was able to congregate the multitudes, the people of the generation, to come and hear all the wonderful things that he acquired in his life. And of course, Bnei Israel, the Jewish people's responsibility, is far and beyond that compared to the rest of the world. The rest of the world doesn't have the obligation to acquire the knowledge of whatever the religion they practice. Most Christians, and probably even most Muslims, don't study the Bible. They don't study the Quran. The Jewish people, although unfortunately probably many don't study the Torah, but we still have an obligation to do so. It's a commandment. Ve'agita bo yomam v'layla. And therefore, in order to study the Torah, you need to have a teacher. So Shlomo HaMelech made it his sole responsibility to do the best he can to explain the laws and the teachings of his predecessors and his teachers, starting with his father David HaMelech, in the maximum clarity possible. And as we're going to see, he was able to communicate this wisdom in such a way that it had many deep, profound meanings, and all of them true, to the point that for generations, people have taken the words of Shlomo HaMelech and literally dissected them, every word, every letter, in order to absorb it in whatever way they can. A prime example, and we will probably, hopefully get this at the end of the book, but a prime example of this phenomenon is the last chapter of Sefer Mishle, of the book of Proverbs, which include, of course, the 22 verses of Eshet Chayil Mimsa. Eshet Chayil Mimsa, found in the last chapter, Perek 31, Perek Lamed Aleph, the woman of valor, an accomplished woman. And without question, the literal translation of those pesukim, of these verses, stand on their own, have inspired countless people, countless women. The worth of the woman is indeed far beyond pearls, like the pasuk says. Her loyalty to her family, her self-reliance, her initiative, her kindness, and her energetic performance of charity, faith, emunah, bitachon, that all the amazing qualities that women have, and of course how her children constantly praise the mother for what they've done in her life. Even if you take these words in a literal face value, it has tremendous meaning. But Eshet Chayil includes far deeper meanings, which are discussed amongst the Chachamim, The Ramban, for example, he interprets Eshet Chayil as a metaphor for the Torah, that her husband is the outstanding Talmid Chacham, the scholar, and her children who praise her are the dedicated students, and the poor people who she helps are the masses of people who the Torah helps in its guidance of life, so on and so forth. So similarly, the rest of Mishle, all the Pesukim that we're going to touch upon in this journey, need to be understood on the more obvious level. And that's my plan here. My plan over the course of the next many Mondays is to interpret the Pesukim of Mishle using Pardes. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Pardes, Pardes is an acronym that stands for Peshat, Remez, Derash, and Sod. Peshat is the simple meaning. Remez is the allusion. Derush, of course, is the midrashic interpretation. And of course, the Sod is the mystical Sodot, secrets of the Torah. And that's what I hope to do as we go forward in this book. The Rav Sadia Gaon describes the book of Mishle, and his words are Sefer Derishat Chochmah, which means the book of the search for wisdom. As the opening Pesukim of this Sefer is going to explain, it addresses all of the people who are searching for wisdom and self-perfection. Who isn't searching for wisdom? Think about it. Who isn't searching for wisdom? I don't like getting political in my Divrei Torah, but we all woke up, or we all turned on our phones and our internets on Motzei Shabbat after Shavuot, and to see what's happening south of the border is appalling. There's no question, and that it is a scary time in the United States, and I do not commend what that police officer, of course, did. It's murder, and it was a horrible, horrible crime. No question, to do that to an individual who was caught for something stupid, and he deserves punishment. No question about that, and I'm glad he's charged. However, to see what is happening as a result, the looting, the rioting, the beating up of innocent people with force, how you see two owners of a store trying to protect themselves getting beaten up with 2x4s. How is this possible? These are individuals who lack wisdom. These are individuals who don't care about self-perfection. These are the people who, unfortunately, are uneducated and just use their animalistic instincts to react without stopping to think. No one says that you cannot protest. Yes, it's a free world. We have free speech. Protest is good. We protest all the time. People are protesting in synagogues. People protest. People have opinions. It's okay. That's fine. We have the right to our opinions, and everyone does. But in a respectful manner, using wisdom. And to see what's happening in the United States right now is very saddening. And because they don't have the commandment to study the wisdom, like I said, we do. We have an obligation to study the works of our Chachamim. None more important than of course Shlomo HaMelech in his book of Mishle. And that's what the beginning of the chapter of this chapter, and in fact the beginning of the book, talks about. The best means in attaining these objectives. So the first parak speaks about the importance of wisdom and the necessity to follow the path that it prescribes to us. Now, it goes, I should give a little introduction, but I'll speak about more of these terms as we go through. A lot of similar words we're going to find as we go through this book, such as Chokhmah, Musar, Bina. Chokhmah is wisdom, Musar is discipline, Bina is understanding. These terms have deep meanings and nuances that really we can't just capture them. When we say Chokhmah, we're going to see the word Chokhmah hundreds of times. What does wisdom mean? So we're going to give some examples of what wisdom means today specifically, and as we go on in the Sefer. But it's important to know that every person listening right now, that as I'm just the tube feeding you the commentaries. It is your job as a listener to seek the wisdom. Not the wisdom from me, from the wisdom from the words of our Chachamim. And you're going to find one perush, you're going to find one sentence that I'm going to say, and again, it's not my sentence, it's just commentary that I'm reading from my notes. You're going to find one sentence that's going to resonate with you. And that's going to lead you to a higher level of wisdom. That is the purpose of why we study. That's the purpose why I felt it's a good time to maybe start the book of Mishle. There's no better time to increase our wisdom. We're always in search of increased wisdom and knowledge, and this is really what the essence of this sefer is. Without further ado, we begin the book of Mishle. Today we're going to cover just two pesukim. That's what we're going to cover, two pesukim, the first two verses of Mishle. Mishle begins with, like I said, an introduction. Mishle, this is the first pasuk. Mishle Shlomo ben David Melech Israel. If you're on a computer, or if you're on a phone, you can just Google the book of Mishle, the book of Proverbs. You can find it on many websites. Sefaria, of course, is a famous one if you want to follow the actual text. Mishle Shlomo ben David Melech Israel. This is the pasuk, literally translated. The Proverbs of Shlomo, son of David, king of Israel. Proverbs. All of the words in this book are examples. All of the words in this book are comparisons. They are parables. For example, Shlomo HaMelech is going to compare the Torah to a loyal wife, like we mentioned, Eshet Chayil. He's going to do it many times throughout this book. He's going to compare idolatry to and heresy. He's going to compare it to an adulteress. Now, the Malbim writes very famously that parables and proverbs are tools that make a deep, abstract concept understandable to the mass by clothing them in a metaphor that can be easily understood. This is what the Malbim writes. So now it may be very difficult for the average person to comprehend the value of Torah study and to comprehend the true harm of idolatry and heresy. But everyone in this world can associate with the benefits of a good and loyal wife and can understand the destructiveness of an adulteress. So therefore, that's just one example. So again, the book begins with this concept of Mishle Shlomo. This is what's happening. The use of parables is going to be front and center in this whole sefer. Rabbeinu Bachya quotes the Chachamim to illustrate the function of meshalim, of parables, a mashal, mishle, a mashal. Imagine someone lost a precious stone in a dark place. Now he knew the stone was there. He knew it was somewhere on the earth, on the sand, but he couldn't find it. He was unable to see it. By lighting a small wick for just a second, for just that split second, he was able to locate his precious jewel. So a virtually worthless strand of cotton wick assumed great importance because it enabled someone to find a gem of great value. Similarly, without reference to the concept it illustrates, the mashal, the parable, is just a simple story of limited value, but when it's properly used, then it has this quality to it that can help us achieve an understanding that we've never been able to comprehend before, because the words of Torah, the secrets of the Chachamim and their words, they're hidden in a darkness to those people who don't understand them. And many people, they view the Torah and they read Pesukim and they say, I just don't get this. I just don't understand. It just makes no sense. and we need that cotton wick we need to ignite that wick so that we can see the precious jewels. Shlomo HaMelech uses the parables. He uses the mishalim as flashes of light to penetrate that darkness. Often you hear people say, quote midrashim, amazing midrashim from the time of Abraham Avinu, the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. Now some people love it. As kids, we love it. Oh my gosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu lifted up a mountain and he put it over the Jewish people's heads. And he said, if you accept the Torah, great. If not, Sham teheh kevuratchem. That's where you're going to. And this is no question. It's a midrash. It's a parable. There's so much profound meaning. Not for now. To that story. To that episode that took place on Har Sinai just a couple days ago on Shavuot. Those are mishalim. These are parables, and it's our job to decipher those, to study the interpretations, so that it could shine a light to our Torah study, and that's the purpose of it. The word Mishle, opening up this book, Mishle Shlomo, the first letter of the word Mishle is a mem, and it's written in a large letter. It's big. Sometimes the letters in the Torah are big, and the reason is because the mem has a numerical value of 40, which alludes to the 40 days that Shlomo HaMelech fasted in order to merit this wisdom. He purposely wrote the letter mem large in order to show that this wasn't easy. This wasn't an easy task. In order to be able to acquire such wisdom, you have to be on the right spiritual level. Some say that he was able to parallel Moshe Rabbeinu, who also spent 40 days and 40 nights with HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Har Sinai, the letter Mem. Moshe Rabbeinu also, when he was on Har Sinai, he didn't eat and he didn't drink while he was receiving the Torah. Let's go a little bit deeper. The Vilna Gaon, I should pause over here and say that the Gaon Vilna, the Vilna Gaon, who was one of the great minds of the last 500 years, who wrote so much commentary on the books of Tanakh, he has one of the most accepted and widely used commentary on the book of Mishle. It is extremely deep. It is extremely powerful. I'll be frank. Just preparing the first few psukim, there's a lot that was beyond my ability to understand. A lot of it was very deep and very Kabbalistic. But whenever I get the chance to share something with you, to share a pearl of his wisdom on this book, there's no doubt I will do it, because it is indeed very special. And the Vilna Gaon actually opens up his commentary on the book of Mishle, explaining that human activity consists of 4 components. Those 4 components are Homer. Homer is substance. Poel is the agent. Tzura is the form. And Tachlit is the purpose. The substance is taken by the agent, who gives it form in order to achieve a desired purpose. Those are the 4 things. In the case of our book, Mishalim, the Proverbs, the wise sayings, the parables that we're going to say, that is the substance of the book. That's what the book is made of. Shlomo HaMelech is the agent, and its form is to teach the wisdom, discipline, and understanding. That's going to be those are the words in the second pasuk, and the purpose is to give practical application to these teachings. That's the goal of the learning. So Mishle is the substance, Shlomo is the agent, and the form is Ladat Chochma Musar, Lavin Imre Bina, which comprises both the form and purpose. But again, that's the second pasuk. Why does it say Shlomo ben David Melech Israel? Why just not say Mishle Shlomo? These are the parables. These are the proverbs of Shlomo. We already know that Shlomo HaMelech is Ben David. We already know that he's Melech Israel. So this is an idea that we actually spoke about in the last Perkei Avot shiur prior to Shavuot. In short, one who studies a text, or one who studies the words and the phrases of the Chachamim, need to know the credentials of the author. We spoke about it in connection to Baruch Shebachar Bahemu B'Mishnatam at the onset of the 6th parak of Pirkei Avot. If the author is very wise, if he is accepting, then his book will surely contain great wisdom. If he's an individual who has Yirat Shamayim, he has fear of God, and he has fear of the Torah and the mitzvot, that will be reflected in his writing. No better than introducing Shlomo HaMelech as Ben David Melech Israel. Because look at his ancestor. Look at his direct ancestor, David HaMelech. We all know who David HaMelech is. So he wants to say, I'm about to teach you my parables and my proverbs. Do you think I'm worthy of it or not? Well, let me just tell you. I'm coming from everything I learned is from my father. Everything I gained is from my father David HaMelech, who was Melech Israel, who became the main king, not the first king, but the main king of Bnei Israel for 40 years. So that's why it gives that introduction. The book of Mishle is actually divided into 3 parts. We're going to touch upon this later. The first section deals with Chokhmah, like I mentioned at the beginning of the Shiur. It deals with, again, generally translated Chokhmah as wisdom. The second deals with Musar, generally translated as discipline. And the third section deals with Torah, the study of the Torah. These 3 descriptive statements in this first pasuk actually correspond to the 3 sections. The first section, which we said is Chokhmah, is wisdom, tells us that it was Mishle Shlomo, because Shlomo is the smartest of all men. The pasuk writes in the book of Melachim, Vayechkam mikol ha'adam, that Shlomo HaMelech was the smartest of all. He was wiser than all men. So since the first part of the book speaks about wisdom, it's connected to the first 2 words of the pasuk, which is Mishle Shlomo, the Proverbs of Shlomo, the wisest of all men. Best to hear it from him when we're in search of wisdom. The second section of the book we said was Musar. Musar is discipline. And that is connected to Ben David, Shlomo HaMelech being the son of David. David was a very pious man. Sorry, I'm just gonna mute everyone here. Make sure. There we go. Shlomo HaMelech was a very pious man. David HaMelech was a very pious man. Shamra nafshi ki chasid ani. David HaMelech referred to himself as a pious man, and therefore this pasuk testifies that Shlomo HaMelech was a loyal son, and again learned everything from his father. He followed his father's ways and was therefore qualified to teach the Musar. He was qualified to teach the discipline to his people. So the third and fourth word of the pasuk, Ben David, correspond to the second half of the book, which is discipline. I can teach you discipline because I'm Ben David, and you don't have to worry about that. And the third section, the section of the Torah, also begins, by the way, with the words Gam Mishle Shlomo, but that's connected to the last 2 words of the opening pasuk, which is Melech Israel, because the Torah, believe it or not, is the source of all dominion. It's the source of all power, and as their king Shlomo HaMelech was able to acquire the Torah in its entirety. The Malbim, who I'll pause here and say, just like the Vilna Gaon had tremendous perush on the book of Mishle, the Malbim as well considered one of the great perushim on the book of Mishle, and we're going to speak about him a lot as well. Also very deep, but more practical than the Vilna Gaon. The Malbim offers a different reason in these 3 descriptions. He says that truth, emet, can be acquired in 3 ways. And Shlomo HaMelech utilized all 3 of these ways in his search for truth. The first way to search for truth is through Chokhmah, through wisdom or prophecy. And therefore, the Pasuk says that the author of this book is Shlomo HaMelech, who was a great Chacham, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu rested prophecy upon him. The second way to search for truth is through transmission, tradition, from father to son. When I see my father's a pious man, that transmits and transfers over to me. And therefore, as a son of David HaMelech, Shlomo HaMelech was capable of imparting that knowledge that he received from his fathers. And last but not least, the third way to seek truth is through experience and experimentation. And because Shlomo HaMelech was Melech Israel, the king of the Jewish people, and a wise nation, and surrounded by many Chachamim, he was able to put his wisdom into effect and was able to practice and experiment with that wisdom as king of Israel. So that first pasuk alone, where if you were just opening a Christian Bible, lehavdil, and you just read the words Mishle Shlomo ben David Melech Yisrael, the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, I guarantee you that 99% of the readers would have just moved right away to the second verse because, what's the first verse? What did it teach you? It didn't teach me anything. Okay, big deal. Now I know the author. No, just the first verse alone, according to the Gaon of Vilna and the Malbim, have deep, profound meanings on why. It is basically setting the stage of what's going to be as we move on in this book. I said we're going to learn 2 pesukim. We finished one, so let's quickly learn the second one. Lada'at chokhmah umusar, lehavin imrei bina. So these proverbs, the purpose of these proverbs, we said that the second pasuk was the purpose. The purpose is in order to make known the words of wisdom and discipline, lakachat chokhmah umusar, and lehavin imrei bina, and to make words of understanding discernible. So Rashi translates the words lada'at chokhmah, which literally means to know knowledge, but he actually translates it as lehodia, which is to make known. Shlomo HaMelech taught these meshalim, these parables, to inform the people that they need to toil in Torah and Ma'asim Tovim, because it's only Torah and Ma'asim which encompass Chokhmah, Musar, and Binah. Those are the 3 branches of wisdom. Other commentators, they say that no, you have to take it literally. Lada'at, to know. It's knowing the way of the righteous, knowing the way of the tzaddikim. What is the way of the tzaddikim? Simple. Tzedek umishpat, truth and justice. And truth and justice goes hand in hand with musar, because musar is the idea of rebuking the wicked and denigrating the wicked by making known the damages that they're causing to the world and the society around them. And many pesukim, says Rabbeinu Yonah, in the book of Mishle, follow that dual track, where on one hand they describe the character of the righteous, and at the same time they will belittle all the midot, the evil midot, the negative traits of the wicked. And the Mishalim, the Proverbs, will emphasize the contrast and the difference between the two, between the Chacham, the Tzaddik, and the Rasha. The Meiri, on a very similar note, he defines these terms as instructions on how to acquire perfection. Chokhmah refers to the perfection of intellect, and Musar is the perfection of midot. Whenever we were in yeshiva, and the Rebbe wanted to give us a Musar shmuz, he wanted to give us a speech on Musar, it wasn't to teach us intellect. That wasn't the purpose. A Musar shmuz was to work on our midot. It was to work on our character traits. Basically, we did something stupid outside, or we got an argument in the classroom, we didn't show derech eretz, so therefore we were pulled aside and we were given a shmuz on Musar. We were spoken about discipline, not physical discipline. It's discipline that to the soul. It's about our midot, our character traits, because those two things are linked. Chokhmah and Musar are very, very much connected. One is impossible without the other. Musar cannot be attained without Chokhmah. You still need wisdom to attain the discipline that you need. Chachamim tell us, Velo Amaretz Hasid, that an unlearned person cannot be pious. And Torah and Derech Eretz, you need both. But yet the Chokhmah without Musar, that becomes repulsive to people, right? Chokhmah without Musar is like Chachamim tell us like a tent without ropes, because it lacks stability, it lacks performance. One of the biggest critiques someone will have of a Talmid Chacham, unfortunately, is a Talmid Chacham without Derech Eretz, a Talmid Chacham without Midot, because he shines brighter than everybody else for the wrong reasons. Everyone is very, very quick to point out, when you see a Talmid Chacham who's anav, he's humble, and he does all the proper things, okay, that's what I expect from him. He's a Talmid Chacham, he's studying yeshiva, he's the role model of the Jewish people. Well, we should be talking about these individuals more and praising him, but unfortunately we don't. But when you see the scholar, the Baal Chokhmah, the man with wisdom, who doesn't have those midot, who lacks those traits, everyone goes to town on that guy. Why? Because it's an individual without stability. And it's one of the most repulsive things to people. People can't take it when they see a rabbi with a beard who lacks midot. Maybe we shouldn't refer to him as rabbi, I don't know. But if a Talmid Chacham is out there and he doesn't have the midot, he cannot deal with people, this individual may have the chokhmah, but he doesn't have the musar. He maybe need to study the book of Mishle. Lehavin imrei bina, to make words of understanding discernible. The Vilna Gaon here again says that this is in connection with our fight of the Yetzer Hara, of the evil inclination. The Vilna Gaon says that this means that we always have to follow the ways of the Torah in our battle of the Yetzer Hara. It's a daily battle. Many, many times we are able to overcome the Yetzer Hara, but unfortunately often we lose that battle. But that's okay. We're not perfect. Everybody loses that battle once in a while. We wake up the next day and we say, I'm going to fight again. And in order to beat that Yetzer Hara, it has to be through the ways of the Torah. And a person cannot resort to pieties that have no basis in halakha. And the Vilna Gaon actually gives an example. And he says, if a person wants to curb excessive eating, if he eats like a pig and he wants to stop that, okay, good, maybe healthy for you. And he wants to start fasting or watching what he eats. Don't do so on Shabbat, he says. Don't fast on Shabbat or Yom Tov because it's halachically forbidden. A person that says, I'm not going to eat bread because bread is fattening. Even on Shabbat, I'm not going to eat bread. But you have to have your seudot. I give this example all the time. You have to have your seudat Shabbat. How can you have your seudat Shabbat without bread? I don't know. I don't want to eat bread. Too many carbs. Too many carbs. Who says you have to eat half a loaf of bread? Have a little bit of bread to have your seudat. So don't be overly pious. Al ti tzaddik harbeh. That's also going to be found in this book. Al ti tzaddik harbeh. Last but not least is the Malbim. Again, goes hand in hand. The Malbim explains Chokhmah, Musar, and Bina as follows. He says that the term Chokhmah implies the proper choice between two opposite courses of action. For example, cruelty and compassion, arrogance, humility, shame, brazenness, eating, fasting. The correct choice between the two is called chokhmah. And the incorrect choice is called sichlut. Sichlut is folly. So normally, for example, humility would be chokhmah, the proper way. And arrogance would be considered folly and sichlut. But that's not always the case. For example, when you deal with a rasha, when you deal with a wicked individual, it's wise to display some arrogance. But in all cases where the terms good and bad are being used, chokhmah represents the person who is doing the proper path, and the follies, the sichlut, is when a person is choosing the improper path. It's impossible, says the Malbim, for a person to come to this understanding on his own. He cannot get the bina, le'avin imrei bina. He cannot come to that understanding on his own. These directives are solely from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His Torah. It's found in the written Torah and the oral Torah, that's the Chumash and the Talmud. Every mention of Chokhmah in the Tanakh is divine. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's instruction, instructing man, directing man to follow a certain path, the right path, and not the other path. That's what Chokhmah is, to the Malbim. What's musar? Well, musar comes from the word yaser. Yaser means to afflict. It's related to the verb asar, to bind, because a person's natural tendencies, unfortunately, is not to be humble. A person's natural tendencies is about arrogance. It's all about me. I care about myself. And since a person's natural tendencies is to be arrogant and to be jealous and to take vengeance and chase after our lusts and our passions, that's a yetzirah. We have to afflict ourselves. We have to restrain ourselves. We have to tie ourselves back. It's yisurin. It's asa lesor. We have to tie ourselves back from this. I really, really want that, but I know it's not right for me. So I'm going to hold myself back. And holding yourself back actually becomes painful sometimes. It's yisurin. It's given man's natural tendency towards the negative. The Torah tells us ki yetzer lev ha'adam ra mineurav, that the yetzer of a man, the inclination of the man's heart is evil from his youth. That's how we're born, right? Think about all our children, or when you were a child, you want everything for yourself. You were jealous of your siblings. That's the way you grew up. I want that. Why did he get it? It's not fair. Jealousy, arrogance, it's all in you from the start. It's a fight to beat it. It's a fight for the Yetzirah. Sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings pain and hardship upon an individual and causes him to restructure his course of his life and return to the right path. Every pain and hardship that a person goes through, any yisurin that a person experiences in life, is an opportunity for us to redirect ourselves. But we have to be smart about it. We need to attain the chokhmah, and then we need the binah. We need the ability to be mevin metoch davar. What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from this yisurin, from this affliction? What does he want from me? Sometimes this restructuring is achieved through the rebuke of elders. Sometimes we need the musar. Sometimes you need to hear it from someone. You need to hear it from your parents. You need to hear it from your siblings. You need to hear it from your rabbi. Rabbi gets up in shul and says, stop talking. You're crazy. You know what's going on in the world. You have to stop talking in shul. Too much talking in shul. You have to take it to heart. You have to take it to heart. If it's making an impact on you, then you know it's working. The musar is penetrating you, and now you got to shift. I'm going one way, but now I got to go the other way. And that takes pain. It's a discomfort. It's not easy. That's what the book of Proverbs is about. Musar refers to Yirat Hashem. Yirat Hashem, Musar Chokhmah. The fear of Hashem is the Musar of wisdom. And one who believes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu and realizes the dictates of the Chokhmah are divine, are from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, will bring him to Yirat Hashem. Therefore, the Musar acts like this rope, forcing a person, keeping him in check. He is ordained and bound by these yisurim, restraining the natural inclination to break loose. And last but not least is binah. Binah refers to the ability to deduce one thing from another. Lavin davar mitoch davar. Chokhmah is the knowledge that is garnered from external sources. The Torah, binah, flows from within. It's on a higher level. When a person is able to analyze, go to the depths of the things that he studies, and reach levels that he hasn't seen before, he can really, really help him reach that spiritual holy destination that he seeks out. This is the purpose of this book. Like the Vilna Gaon said, we know what the agent is. The agent is the sefer we're about to read. We know what the chomer, the substance. The agent is Shlomo HaMelech. We're here listening to his words. We're reading his words. The form is the substance, is the acquisition of Chokhmah, Musar, and Binah, which is the Torah. And Bezrat Hashem, if you join me every Monday night, we'll continue this journey in search for true wisdom, true Musar, and true understanding of the Torah. Bezrat Hashem. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful evening.